I'm Flora MacDonald Gammon from North Carolina. My father was Richard Ray Gammon, his father Samuel Ray Gammon, and my fifth great-grandfather was the Reverend Joseph Rhea, who was minister of Fahan Presbyterian Church in the late 1600s, around 1640s into 1669. I'm sorry, I continue to do that. 1740s into 1769, and he left in 1769 for America, went to Philadelphia, and took his family and became the first minister of a church in Taneytown, Maryland. Now, interestingly enough, it's spelled T-A-N-E-Y, town. There's no R in it, but they pronounce it Taneytown, sort of a strange way of pronouncing it. And he was a minister there for a number of years. He was a part of the early pre-Revolutionary War period in America and went with the Reverend Samuel Doak, D-O-A-K, to what is now eastern Tennessee, southwest Virginia and eastern Tennessee, to minister to any settlers and also the Native Americans that were there. And he liked it so much that he bought land down there in what's now East Tennessee. But when he went back up to Maryland to resign his commission, he died a few days after he had resigned the commission, and so he ended up, the family came on down to eastern Tennessee, but he was the first person buried in that churchyard up there in Taneytown, Maryland. The family came into East Tennessee. It's easier to say East Tennessee. At the time, it was still North Carolina colony. But after the Revolutionary War, then the state of Tennessee came into being a few years later. And so the property is actually in East Tennessee. There are a lot of Ray descendants there, and there's actually a county in the area that is called Ray County, Tennessee. There is the town of Rayville, Tennessee, but through my family, I ended up going through a couple of female lines and then back down through the male lines. So I don't carry the name, but my father carried it very proudly.
Excellent. And there was a log, you mentioned a log that he kept. Yes,
the Reverend Joseph Rhea was a writer. I know there is a record of him leaving Fahan Church and a letter to the presbytery of why the congregation would not pay him his 24 pounds that he was due, and so he was resigning his commission here. But then he has a log from his ship that talks about the trip and the fact that they took quite a bit of food with them, but it wasn't enough for the whole journey, and how mean the captain was and didn't help share food or anything, how uncomfortable the journey was, even though they actually had a cabin. At the same time, the uncomfortableness of it was something very important to him because he wrote about it. And then when he got to, as I say, into Pennsylvania, actually into the Philadelphia area, then he was given a commission to a Presbyterian church out in what's today the panhandle of Maryland, between Pennsylvania and Virginia.
Excellent. And you came here for a specific reason?
I came here specifically because several years ago, of course, Billy Kennedy, the editor from the Belfast Newsletter, had written a number of books about the Scots-Irish in America, and he had written about the Reverend Joseph Rhea and had found some writings of his. And then several years later, I met a lady from the Northern Ireland Tourist Board at a Scottish Games in America, and she was telling me that the Fahan Church was still in use. And as soon as she told me that, just my immediate reaction was, I have to go to services there. I want to go. And it took me about 5 years before I got to come over here, but that was very, very important to me to go to church services at Fahan Church. And I went online and found they had a website and a contact us section, so I contacted them, and James was very nice as the clerk of session to email me back and say, you're welcome to come here, and found some very nice people who were willing to put up with me.
They're down
Robin
the back here, we might as well.
Yeah, Robin and Sandra.
Sitting quietly in the back.
Who have given up their lives for the last few days to help me out and show me
Yeah.
this area very kindly.
Excellent.
And so I was at services there yesterday, and it was wonderful, wonderful.
And you're here now at Monrea.
I'm here now at Monrea.
But
and
unfortunately, I think you're going further south tomorrow. You're going to Dublin, is it?
Yes, I'm going to Dublin later on tomorrow, but I've been up in Belfast and in the north area for a little over a week, and visited some friends in the Belfast area, and now once I leave here, I'll be visiting a friend that lives north of Dublin, and then going back to the States.
Okay, and you'll keep in touch.
Oh, yes.
Because you have a lot of...
I'll definitely keep in touch.
Because
yeah.
you are a lecturer, freelance.
Yes, I'm a person on a second career right now. My first career was in operating theater nursing, and I did that for 25 years, and then left that and went into a whole different career of teaching Scottish history and Celtic history and lecturing in that mostly to retirees. I often say I interpret Scottish history for Americans.
Yeah.
Because when they write about Scottish history, most of the British people writing about it have a certain amount of background knowledge, and they assume that you know things, and Americans don't. So I interpret those things for Americans. And I've also worked with school children and taught them Scottish history and culture with a lot of the songs and the dances and the clothing styles and things like that. And then I'm also a singer, so I perform Scottish folk music and traditional American folk music anywhere and everywhere.
So you might actually write a little article or two for our online newsletter.
I might.
You might.
Oh, okay.
That's been more or less you're told. All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.